The clock on the wall read 11 p.m. when my wife walked into our home office where I sat reviewing documents. Her face carried that peculiar expression I'd come to recognize over the past few weeks, a mixture of guilt and defiance, fear and excitement. She stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the hallway light, and I knew the moment had finally arrived. "We need to talk," she said, her voice trembling slightly. I looked up from my laptop, my expression neutral. "Of course. Come in." She stepped inside, closing the door behind her with more force than necessary. The sound echoed through the room like a gunshot. She remained standing while I sat, creating a power dynamic she probably thought favored her. She took a deep breath, and I could see her steeling herself for what came next. "I've been thinking a lot about us lately," she began, her words carefully rehearsed. "About our marriage, our future, everything we've built together." I nodded slowly, saying nothing. Let her have her moment. "And I've realized something important. Something I can't ignore anymore." She paused, waiting for me to react, to show some emotion, anything. When I remained silent, she continued, her voice gaining false confidence. "If met someone who understands me in ways you never have. Someone who makes me feel alive again." The words hung in the air between us like poison gas. She watched my face intently, searching for the devastation she expected to see. The tears, the anger, the desperate pleas for her to reconsider. But I'd had weeks to prepare for this moment, weeks to process every emotion she expected to witness now. "I found someone better," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want a divorce." I leaned back in my chair, folding my hands across my chest. The silence stretched between us for what felt like an eternity. Then, slowly, deliberately, I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out a manila folder. I placed it on the desk between us with a soft thud. "You mean Richard from your gym?" I said calmly. "The personal trainer who's been texting you since August? The one you've been meeting at the Riverside Hotel every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon?" Her face went pale. The color drained so quickly I thought she might faint. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air, but no words came out. I opened the folder and slid several photographs across the desk toward her. Images of her and Richard entering the hotel, leaving together, laughing at a cafe, his hand on her lower back. Time-stamped, dated, undeniable. "I've known for 6 weeks," I continued, my voice remaining steady and emotionless. "I hired a private investigator on September 15th, the day after I noticed you'd started password protecting your phone. The day you suddenly needed to go to the gym 5 times a week instead of 3. She finally found her voice. "You've known? For 6 weeks?" Her hand gripped the edge of my desk for support. "Why didn't you say anything?" I stood up slowly, buttoning my suit jacket with deliberate precision. "Because I needed time to protect myself. To protect everything I've built. You see, while you were busy planning your exit and enjoying your affair, I was planning too. The difference is, I was actually thinking about consequences." I pulled out another folder, this one significantly thicker. "These are divorce papers. Already drawn up, reviewed by my attorney, and ready for filing. I'm citing adultery with documented evidence. Given the prenuptial agreement you signed 7 years ago, the one you probably forgot about in your excitement, you're entitled to virtually nothing from my business or assets acquired during the marriage." Her legs seemed to give out, and she sank into the chair opposite my desk. "You can't do this. We can talk about this. Maybe we can." "We're done talking," I interrupted. "I gave you 7 years of loyalty, support, and partnership. You threw it away for a man who, according to my investigator's report, has done this exact same thing with 3 other married women in the past 2 years. Congratulations on being so special." She stared at me, seeing perhaps for the first time the man she'd actually married, not the pushover she'd imagined would crumble at her confession, but someone who valued himself enough to walk away with dignity. "I want you out of this house by this weekend," I said, sitting back down and returning my attention to my laptop. "Your mother's house or Richard's apartment, I don't particularly care which. My attorney will be in touch." The morning after our confrontation, I woke up to find my wife hadn't left our bedroom. I'd spent the night in the guest room, something that had actually become routine over the past few weeks as I'd prepared for this moment. When I came downstairs at 6 a.m. for my usual coffee, she was sitting at the kitchen table, still wearing yesterday's clothes, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "We need to talk," she said hoarsely. "Really talk." I poured my coffee, taking my time, letting the silence work for me. "There's nothing to discuss. My attorney will handle everything from here." "Please," she begged, standing up and approaching me. "Just give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes to explain." I checked my watch. "You have 3. She flinched at my coldness but pressed on. "It was a mistake. A terrible mistake. Richard, he made me feel things I hadn't felt in years. He paid attention to me, made me feel young and desirable again. You've been so focused on your business, working late every night, always stressed." "Stop." I held up my hand. "Don't you dare blame your infidelity on my work ethic. The same work ethic that paid for this house, your car, those tennis lessons you suddenly started taking, and every other comfort you've enjoyed." "I'm not blaming you," she said quickly, tears streaming down her face. "I'm trying to explain. I felt lonely. I felt like we'd become roommates instead of partners. And Richard, he was there, and he listened, and one thing led to another." "One thing led to another," I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "How poetic. How convenient. Tell me, did one thing lead to another on all those Tuesday and Thursday afternoons? What about the weekend in Charleston you told me was a girls' trip?" Her face crumbled. "You knew about Charleston." "I know about everything. Charleston, the late-night phone calls you took in your car, the new lingerie I never saw you wear, the sudden interest in your appearance after years of not caring." I set my coffee down with deliberate care. "I know exactly when I stopped being enough for you. What I didn't know was why I ever was." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "I love you. I do. I got confused, I made horrible choices, but I love you. We can fix this. Counseling, therapy, whatever it takes." "You don't love me," I said quietly. "You love what I provide. There's a difference. If you loved me, you wouldn't have spent 6 months sleeping with another man. If you loved me, you would have come to me when you felt lonely instead of spreading your legs for the first man who gave you attention." She gasped as if I'd slapped her. "That's cruel." "That's honest. There's a difference there too, one you should learn." I picked up my briefcase from the counter. "I'm going to work. When I return this evening, I expect you to have removed your personal items from the master bedroom. You can stay in the guest room until this weekend, but we're done sharing space." "What about Richard?" she asked suddenly, her voice small. "Did your investigator find out anything about him?" I paused at the doorway, considering whether to tell her. Then I decided she deserved to know exactly what she'd thrown her marriage away for. Richard is 32 years old. He's been working as a personal trainer for 6 years, moving from gym to gym every 18 months or so. He has a pattern. He targets married women with money, showers them with attention, gets them to fall in love with him, and then begins asking for financial help. Small amounts at first, a few hundred here and there for bills or his sick mother. Then it escalates. Her face went white. "No, he wouldn't. He's done it at least 3 times before. One woman gave him $50,000 before her husband found out. Another paid off his car loan and credit card debt. The third bought him a condo, which he promptly sold and disappeared with the money." I watched her process this information, seeing her entire fantasy crumble. "Has he asked you for money yet?" She sank back into her chair, and I had my answer in her silence. "How much?" I pressed. $5,000, she whispered. "He said his mother needed surgery. I took it from our savings account 2 weeks ago." I actually laughed, a bitter sound that surprised even me. "Our savings account. The one with my money in it, earned by my labor. You stole from me to give to your lover. Do you understand that's a crime?" I was going to put it back. "With what money?" Your part-time job at the boutique that barely covers your personal expenses. I shook my head. This gets better by the minute. My attorney will add that to the filing. Theft, adultery, breach of prenuptial agreement. You're building quite the case against yourself. Why are you being so cruel? She sobbed. This isn't like you. You're not this cold. You're right, I said, my voice softening slightly despite myself. I'm not usually this cold. But then again, I've never had someone I loved and trusted betray me so completely. You did this. You turned me into this. This is the man you created when you decided our vows meant nothing. By Wednesday, the situation had deteriorated further. My wife had been frantically calling Richard since Monday morning, but according to my investigator, whom I'd kept on retainer, he'd gone completely dark. No responses to texts, calls going to voicemail, his social media profiles suddenly deleted. The reality of her situation was finally sinking in. I came home from work to find her laptop open on the dining table, surrounded by crumpled tissues and empty coffee cups. She looked up when I entered, her face a mask of devastation. He's gone, she said flatly. Richard. He's disappeared. His phone is disconnected, his apartment is empty, and the gym says he quit last Friday. I know, I replied, setting down my briefcase. My investigator tracked him to an apartment in Denver. Apparently, he's working at a new gym there already. Funny how quickly people can move on, isn't it? She stared at me with hollow eyes. You knew? You knew he was leaving and you didn't tell me. Why would I? You chose him over me, remember? You found someone better. What he does now is none of my concern, or yours, actually, since we're getting divorced. I loosened my tie. Did you get your things moved out of the master bedroom? Instead of answering, she started crying again. Deep, shaking sobs that would have broken my heart just 2 months ago. Now I felt nothing but a distant pity, the kind you might feel for a stranger who'd made terrible life choices. My mother knows, she said between sobs. She called me today. Someone from her church saw the photos. They're spreading around town. Everyone knows what I did. She said I've humiliated the family. She said I should have known better than to throw away a good man for a fling. Your mother's right, I said simply. She said I can't stay with her. She's too embarrassed. She asked me how I could be so stupid. She looked up at me with desperate eyes. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem to solve. You made your choices. This is what living with consequences looks like. I moved toward the stairs. You have until Saturday. After that, I'm changing the locks and anything left here will be considered abandoned property. Wait, she called out, standing up. I talked to a lawyer today. My own lawyer. Good. That's appropriate. He said the prenup might not hold up. He said we can argue I signed it under duress, that I didn't have proper legal representation, that circumstances have changed significantly during our marriage. There was a desperate hope in her voice. He thinks I could get the house, alimony, maybe even a share of your business. I turned to face her fully, and something in my expression made her take a step back. Let me explain something to you, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Your lawyer is telling you what you want to hear because he wants your retainer fee. The prenup was reviewed by 2 independent attorneys before you signed it. You had 3 weeks to consider it. You signed it voluntarily, and there's video documentation of the signing where you explicitly state you understand its terms. I walked back toward her, and she backed up against the table. But let's say you want to fight this in court. Let's say you want to drag this out for months or years. Do you have any idea what that will cost? Good divorce attorneys charge $400 an hour. Mine charges $600, and I have him on retainer. I can afford a protracted legal battle. Can you? Her face answered before her words could. And what exactly will you tell a judge? That you deserve half my assets because you committed adultery? Because you stole $5,000 from our savings to give to your lover? Because you systematically lied to me for 6 months while destroying our marriage? I shook my head. You'll spend tens of thousands of dollars. You don't have to end up with exactly what I'm offering you now, which is nothing." "This isn't fair," she whispered. "Fair?" I laughed without humor. "You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you stood at that altar 7 years ago and promised to love me, honor me, be faithful to me? Was it fair when you came home from your affair and kissed me, letting me taste another man on your lips? Was it fair when you made me believe we were building a future together while you were planning to abandon me?" She had no answer for that. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "You're going to sign the divorce papers my attorney provides. You're going to take your personal belongings and the car that's in your name, which I paid off, by the way. You're going to move on with your life and leave me alone. In exchange, I won't sue you for the $5,000 you stole, and I won't press charges for theft. And if I refuse? Then we go to court, every detail of your affair becomes public record, you lose anyway, and you end up bankrupt and unemployed because I guarantee your boss at the boutique won't keep you once she knows what kind of person you really are. Her husband is my accountant, remember? They have very traditional views on marriage and fidelity." I watched her process this, seeing the last of her fight drain away. "I never meant for it to go this far," she said quietly. "It was just supposed to be some excitement, something to make me feel alive again. I never meant to fall for him. I never meant to hurt you like this." "But you did. Intentions don't matter, actions do. And your actions showed me exactly who you are and what I mean to you." Thursday evening, I returned home to find my wife sitting in the dark living room, illuminated only by the glow of her phone. She looked up when I entered, and I could see she'd been crying again. At this point, her tears had no effect on me. I'd mourned our marriage weeks ago, in private, where she couldn't use my grief against me. "I called Richard," she said, her voice hollow. "Used a different number." He answered. I set my briefcase down, curious despite myself. "And?" He laughed at me. Her voice cracked. "I told him I'd left my husband for him, that I was getting divorced. He laughed and said he never promised me anything. Said I was just another good time and I should have known better than to think he was serious." "What did you expect? I told you exactly what kind of man he was." "I didn't believe you. I thought you were just being jealous, trying to ruin what we had." She let out a bitter laugh. "What we had? It was nothing. It was never anything. He told me I was convenient and generous. That's what he called me, generous. Because of the $5,000. She looked up at me, her face illuminated by the phone's glow. "He said he's done this dozens of times. Married women are easy targets," he said. "They're lonely, desperate for attention, and usually have access to their husband's money." He actually thanked me for being so predictable. "I'm sorry you had to hear that," I said, and I meant it. Not sorry enough to take her back, but sorry she discovered the truth in such a cruel way. No one deserves to be used like that. "But I deserve to lose you?" she asked, a flash of her old defiance returning. "You didn't lose me. You threw me away. There's a difference." I moved toward the kitchen, needing distance from this conversation. "Have you found a place to stay yet? It's Thursday. You have 2 days." "I called everyone I know," she said, following me. "My friends, my sister, even my father. Do you know what they all said? They said I made my bed and now I have to lie in it. My own sister said she didn't want her husband around someone with such loose morals. My best friend since college said she couldn't support someone who'd throw away a good marriage for a fling." She leaned against the kitchen doorway. "Your family was the only one who was kind. Your mother called me yesterday. Did you know that?" I paused in the act of opening the refrigerator. "No. She said she was disappointed in me, but she didn't hate me. She said she hoped I'd learn from this and become a better person. She said she'd pray for me." Tears streamed down her face again. "Your mother showed me more grace in 5 minutes than my own family has in 3 days." "My mother is a better person than most," I acknowledged. "But her kindness doesn't change anything between us." "I know." She wiped her eyes. "I found a studio apartment. It's small, in a bad part of town, but it's all I can afford. I can move in on Saturday. I'll need to sell my car to pay for the deposit and first month's rent. Keep the car, I said, surprising myself. It's paid off. You'll need it for work. She looked at me with surprise and something that might have been hope. Why would you do that? After everything? Because despite what you did, I'm not a cruel person. I don't want you to be homeless or without transportation. I just want you out of my life. I pulled a bottle of water from the refrigerator. Consider it a final act of the man you married. The one who actually cared about your well-being. Can I ask you something? She said quietly. You can ask. I may not answer. When did you stop loving me? Was it the moment you found out, or did it happen gradually as you planned all this? I considered lying, considered telling her I'd stopped loving her the instant I saw those photographs. But she deserved at least this one truth. I stopped loving you the morning I woke up and realized I'd been mourning someone who was still alive, I said. It was about 2 weeks after I hired the investigator. I had all the proof I needed, and I was sitting in my car outside our house, watching you through the window as you got ready for another gym session. You were smiling, excited, putting on makeup for another man. I took a sip of water, the memory still sharp, and I realized the woman I loved didn't exist anymore. Maybe she never existed. Maybe I'd been in love with an illusion, a performance you put on for 7 years. That's when I stopped loving you, when I realized I'd been grieving a ghost. She was crying silently now, and I felt nothing. I see, she whispered. For what it's worth, I did love you. Maybe not in the way you deserved, maybe not enough, but I did. Past tense, I noted. Yes, past tense. She straightened up, wiping her face with her sleeves. I'll start packing tomorrow. I'll be gone by Saturday afternoon. Thank you. She turned to leave, then paused. The man you've become these past few days, this cold, calculating person, is that who you really are? Or did I create this version of you? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe both. Maybe neither. Maybe this is who anyone becomes when someone they love decides they're not enough. Saturday morning arrived with unexpected sunlight streaming through the windows. I'd slept in the master bedroom for the first time in a week, reclaiming my space, my life. When I came downstairs, I found my wife loading the last boxes into her car. The house already felt different, lighter somehow, as if a weight had been lifted. She saw me standing in the doorway and straightened up, brushing dust from her jeans. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. The confident woman who declared she'd found someone better was gone, replaced by someone who finally understood the cost of her choices. I think that's everything, she said, her voice quiet. I left the garage door opener on the counter. And my key is there too. I nodded, saying nothing. What was there to say? All the words had already been spoken, all the damage already done. She walked back into the house one final time, looking around the foyer as if memorizing it. This was a beautiful home, she said softly. We had some good times here, didn't we? Before everything fell apart. We did, I acknowledged. But that doesn't change what happened. Good memories don't erase bad choices. She flinched but nodded. The divorce papers, I signed them. They're on the kitchen table. I didn't fight any of your terms. My lawyer said I was being stupid, but I couldn't. I couldn't drag this out. I owe you at least that much. I appreciate that. An awkward silence fell between us. 7 years of marriage, 7 years of shared history, all reduced to this uncomfortable goodbye between two people who'd become strangers. Can I ask you one more thing? She said, her voice barely above a whisper. What? If I'd come to you before any of this happened, if I'd told you I was feeling lonely and disconnected, would you have listened? Would you have fought for us? I thought about that question, really thought about it. Yes, I said finally. If you'd come to me honestly, told me you were struggling, told me you needed more from our marriage, I would have fought like hell to fix it. I would have gone to counseling, changed my work schedule, done whatever it took. That's what marriage is supposed to be, Two people fighting for each other. But you chose to fight alone, for yourself, with another man. You didn't give me the chance to be better, to try harder. You just decided I wasn't enough and moved on. So no, I can't forgive that. I can't come back from that. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand. I don't blame you. I hate myself enough for both of us. Don't hate yourself, I said, surprising myself again with a moment of kindness. Learn from this. Become the person you should have been for me. Maybe the next man will get the woman I deserved. There won't be a next man, she said firmly. Not for a long time. I need to figure out who I am, why I did this. I need to become someone I can respect again. That's good. That's growth. I glanced at my watch. You should go. Your new landlord is expecting you. She picked up her purse, slinging it over her shoulder. She walked toward the door, then turned back one final time. I know you won't believe this, but I am sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. Not just because I got caught. Not just because Richard turned out to be exactly what you said he was. I'm sorry because I hurt someone who didn't deserve it. Someone who was good to me. Someone who loved me. I believe you, I said. And oddly, I did. But sorry doesn't fix what's broken. It just acknowledges the damage. She nodded and walked out the door. I watched from the window as she got into her car, sitting there for a long moment before starting the engine. She didn't look back at the house. She just drove away, disappearing around the corner and out of my life. I stood there for a while, processing the fact that it was really over. 7 years of marriage, ended because someone chose temporary excitement over lasting commitment. Part of me felt vindicated. My careful planning had protected me from the worst of the fallout. But another part felt empty, grieving not just for what I'd lost, but for what I'd never really had. My phone buzzed. A text from my attorney, papers filed. Court date set for December 15th. Barring any surprises, it should be straightforward. I typed back, thank you. Another text came through, this time from my mother, proud of you, son. You handled this with more grace than most would have. Come for dinner Sunday. I'll be there. I walked through the house, room by room, reclaiming my space. In the bedroom, I found a note she'd left on the nightstand. Thank you for loving me when I was worth loving. I hope someday you find someone who treasures that love the way I should have. You deserve better than what I gave you. You deserve everything. Her. I crumpled the note and threw it away. I didn't need her thanks or her well wishes. I needed closure, and I'd finally gotten it. Over the next few weeks, life began to normalize. I threw myself into work, reconnected with friends I'd neglected, and started going to the gym regularly, a different gym, naturally. My colleagues noticed the change in me. Some commented that I seemed more focused, more driven. Others said I seemed harder, more guarded. Both were probably true. One evening, about a month after she'd moved out, I was having dinner with my best friend David. He'd known about the affair from the beginning. I'd needed someone to talk to while I planned my exit strategy. So how are you really doing? He asked over drinks. And don't give me the I'm fine line. I want the truth. I considered the question. Honestly, I'm relieved. Angry sometimes. Sad occasionally. But mostly relieved. I'm not spending my energy on someone who didn't value it. I'm not wondering where she is or who she's with. I'm not lying awake at night feeling like I'm not enough. That's healthy. Is it? Sometimes I wonder if I'm too okay with it. Like maybe I didn't love her as much as I thought I did. Or maybe you'd already done your grieving before the relationship officially ended, David suggested. Those 6 weeks between discovering the affair and confronting her, that was your mourning period. By the time she confessed, you'd already moved through denial, anger, bargaining, and depression. You'd reached acceptance. He was probably right. Those 6 weeks had been the hardest of my life. The nights I'd spent in my office, looking at those photos, forcing myself to accept that my marriage was over. The days I'd maintained normalcy, pretending everything was fine while dying inside. By the time she'd made her confession, I'd already done the hard work of letting go. "Do you think you'll date again?" David asked. "Eventually. Not anytime soon. I need time to trust again, to believe that not everyone is capable of that kind of betrayal." "Not everyone is," he assured me. "What she did, that's on her character, not on all women." I know that intellectually. Feeling it is different. As I drove home that night, I thought about the future. About the man I'd been before the affair, the man I'd become during it, and the man I wanted to be going forward. I'd learned valuable lessons about self-worth, about protecting yourself, about the importance of actions over words. I'd also learned that love without respect is worthless. That devotion without reciprocity is just self-destruction. That sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is walk away from someone who doesn't value you. My wife, ex-wife, I corrected myself, had taught me all of that. Not through her words, but through her actions. And while the lessons had been painful, they'd also been necessary. I pulled into my driveway, looking at the house that was now truly mine. Tomorrow I'd start redecorating, removing the last traces of our shared life. I'd paint the bedroom, replace the furniture, make the space entirely my own. But tonight, I'd allow myself one final moment of grief for what could have been. For the marriage I'd wanted, the partnership I'd believed in, the future we'd planned together. And then I'd let it go. Completely. Finally. Because that's what you do when someone shows you who they really are. You believe them, you protect yourself, and you move forward.